last time my name was changed, I was 4 years old. My parents sent me to live in a Hare Krishna school in Dallas, Texas. My name was changed from Vanessa to Radha Manjari. It's a Sanskrit name. I wore saris, covered my head, ate Indian food, woke up at 3 a.m. for prayers, sold spiritual books door to door, studied the Bhagavad Gita, and I had very little contact with the outside world, including my own parents and extended family. Phone calls were allowed for 10 minutes on Sundays, and all forms of communication were heavily censored. From the age of 4 to 12 years old, I attended 7 different Hare Krishna schools. Over those 8 years, us kids were slapped for talking back, forced to lick food and milk off the floor if we spilled it. When I was 7, I ate okra and promptly threw it up. I was then forced to eat my vomit. It was offensive to God to waste food. As punishment, we were routinely isolated from friends and family, called names, humiliated, and hit. The adults were on a mission to purify our souls of all the sins and influences of the outside world. I wanted to reject all of this, but was deterred by the consequences. I curbed my instincts for several years, going along with the life I had been forced into. The second time my identity was on the line was when I was 11 years old. I was kicked out of school in upstate New York for causing discord among the sheep. My friends were the fallen angels, and I was Lucifer. This wasn't such a bad deal. I would be reunited with my mother, who I hadn't lived with in 8 years. However, once we were reunited, it was nothing like I imagined. One afternoon, as I returned home and walked to the stairs of the trailer, she handed me a basket filled with orange laundry. I noticed it had men's dirty clothing, socks, a prayer bag, and a dhoti. A dhoti is a garment Hindu men wear. Orange clothing is worn by a celibate, unmarried man. A knot formed in my stomach. Waves of disgust came over me. With that sick feeling, my wild instinct kicked in. You want me to get married? My face turned red in embarrassment, panic, and anger. I put down the basket. I'm not getting married. She extolled the virtues of marriage. I would be made into a good woman by virtue of getting married and serving God by dutifully submitting to my husband. Please give him a chance, she begged. I was too young at the time to know the spiritual and physical threats the guru had made to her if she didn't get me under control. All I felt in that moment were the sharp stings of betrayal of my mother. I agreed. I really had no choice. I was 11, and my suitor was 29. Like anyone vying for the good graces of a child, my suitor took me to Epcot Center, a newly opened amusement park in Orlando, Florida. I don't remember the drive, other than sitting in the back seat. I wore a colorful sari, my usual clothing. However, I had never been in such a public place, dressed like this, and practically alone with a grown man. I watched the other girls with their friends, wearing pants, their hair flowing in the Florida sunshine. I watched longingly as parents held their children's hands and moms and dads talked and walked together, smiling. I was 4 the last time my family was together like this. I had never been to an amusement park, and while it all seemed overwhelming, there was an excitement I just couldn't resist. Walking awkwardly through the park, I hung on to the threads of my childhood and immersed myself in the fantasy that I was adopted. Perhaps I had real parents somewhere who might someday save me. Maybe I would be discovered and put on TV. Maybe someone would just like me and rescue me. We decided to take a ride on Space Mountain. My suitor sat in front of me, my mother behind me, as I spun through the darkness, excited, scared, and hoping to be transported into another life. Maybe I'd just jump out and let myself fall into oblivion. My little hands held tightly onto the only sense of freedom I knew and would possibly ever know again. But in the rush of the ride, I felt my confidence grow and a sense of my wildness return. We disembarked from the ride, and my suitor laid out the many benefits an 11-year-old might reap of marriage: protection, freedom, and popularity. We went through a question and answer session, which included, "What's your favorite food?" "Cookies," I said, and they still are. He told me I would be able to eat as many cookies as I like because I would be considered an adult if I marry him. He also promised that I would be the star of my school, because I would be the first of my friends to be married. Little did he know. I sharply stated, "I'm already a star. Everyone from here to Europe knows me. I don't need you." I was unyielding. My unrelenting inner strength shined through, and he realized he picked the wrong child bride to mold into his vision of a perfect wife. When we arrived home, my mom cried as I shared I didn't believe in Krishna. I wanted to change my name back to Vanessa, to see my grandparents. I wanted to go to college, to become a psychologist and have a real job, not beg for money in the street. As I spoke clearly that my wants were different than hers, I felt her heart breaking at my decision. Yet I also felt betrayed by her. She had given up on me, and I gave up on her. All those years I longed to be with her and cried myself to sleep, and when we were finally reunited, she wanted to give me away, again, not to someone to love me, but to someone who could control me. That afternoon, I went to the only freestanding phone in the community and called my dad collect. I told him Mom wanted me to marry a man more than twice my age, and that he needed to fly me to London, or I was calling the police. There I went again with my crazy threats. This one worked. A few weeks later, I flew to London, and for the first time in 8 years, I slept in past 4 a.m. He introduced me to the music of Frank Sinatra and Pizza Hut. We ate spuds piled high with sour cream and cream cheese and drank soda. I wore a short blue and green plaid kilt skirt almost daily. I read Lord of the Rings and Stephen King's Firestarter. I watched Empire Strikes Back and Indiana Jones at a theater in Piccadilly. I stuffed myself with chocolate, had my first crush on a boy without getting demerits, and smoked my first cigarette with a Catholic girl who lived down the street. Away from the Hare Krishnas, I recreated myself in a way that felt unoppressed, that hinted at some kind of freedom. I changed my name back to Vanessa, and I used my dad's last name as a way to reinforce that I had made a definite break from the past. Over the following years, I danced the lines between my wildness and conformity. When I got married to an age-appropriate man, it was with trepidation that I took his last name. In the aftermath of what started as love, quickly grew into a sentence, of confinement, and eventually a split. That's when I decided to reclaim my identity the way I envisioned it. I had once let everyone else name me, rename me, and categorize me to suit their comfort. So tonight's a really big night for me, not just in sharing this story with you. Today, I took this into my own hands and legally filed to change my last name to reflect the part of me that no one can ever take away. It's not Lucifer. My last name is Wilde with an E. Thank you. Wilde is in honor of the women in my family who sold themselves out to marriages of convenience and succumbed to the confines of skewed spirituality. Wilde celebrates my parents, who were driven by pure passion, love, creativity, but got mixed up with the wrong gang. Wilde is in honor of the dreamers who came before me, and it is in faith of those who will trailblaze the road ahead. Thank you.